this is Mouse Gunner, and we're going to have another look at medieval engineers. So, this time, as I discussed in my previous video, with that building over there, which I dubbed the House of Cards, I stated that I'd like to build a large structure that's a little bit more structurally sound and following the rules of architecture as I understood it. Well, this is the building we have here. So as we can see, we have a nice entrance here, trying a little bit of something new. We have the new king statues that I've added in, which add a little bit of aesthetic appeal to the front of the building. And we've got this nice large archway, and maybe we can build in a gate here if I were to develop this building more. But let's go ahead and come inside. So you see a similar structure to what you've seen from me with some of my other buildings. We're using a 3 high, using a number of columns and arches to make these nice structurally sound arches for our ceiling. And that's continued, you know, essentially 2 by 2, because that's what we have to work with the arches at the moment. And essentially, what I would do with this is areas that I'd want to wall off and make actual rooms, I would essentially just build in walls, and we have an example of this here. So I've just walled off sections to make, you know, areas that I want to use. And for this particular instance, I'm using this for the staircase, which we have a nice spiral staircase here, which I've walled in so that you don't see that, weird floating stairs that you get out of the spiral staircases if you don't wall them off. But anyway, we come up our spiral staircase, and we come up to the next floor, which is another set of arches 2 by 2, and then we come up to another spiral staircase here, and we find that it's unfinished. And there's a reason for that. Unfortunately, as much as I tried to follow the rules of architecture and make a structurally sound building, I ran into the same barrier I had with my previous building. Once you get up to the 3rd floor, trying to make the structure completely out of stone, it just can't bear up to the weight of all that stone, and it collapses. So, just to discuss the structure that I have, so as you can see, this arch falls here, and what I've done with the next room, floor is I essentially made this floor 10 by 10. The next floor is 8 by 8, so it's 1 on either side, smaller, and what that does as a result is this arch falls right in the middle here, in between these 2 doors, which makes it fall right in the middle of this arch. And from what I understand of how architecture works, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to put the weight of the floor above it into the center of this arch so it can dissipate the weight to either side, thus spreading the weight and allowing the structure to be much more sound. So in that vein, supposedly this structure should be more sound than the previous one that I built, but that is not what I have found. Essentially what has happened is that this structure here is about, I would say, the same structural soundness as the building over there. Now the rooms over there were much smaller. They were 6 by 5, so there was less weight bearing on the floors below it. But unfortunately, if we pop down here, go ahead and fall down the distance, we'll see that when we put up the structural integrity, we see that it is quite dark. A lot of dark oranges and even red in spots. So this is actually less structural sound than the building I built previously, which technically broke the rules of structural integrity from what I understand. I'm not going to try and say that I have a large understanding of architecture, but from what I understand, I am indeed following the rules of what you're supposed to do. So it is kind of disappointing that this structure didn't stand. Now, there are a number of things I could probably do to try and get it to stand. For instance, rather than starting with a floor that's 10 by 10 and 3 high on the bottom, I could start with an 8 by 8 floor that is only 2 high, much as I have with the 2nd floor, and maybe it would be a little bit more structurally sound. But unfortunately, I was trying to build 3 floors at minimum, beating what I did over here. Unfortunately, I could not do that. And actually, I planned on doing 4 floors. 1 10 by 10, 1 8 by 8, 1 6 by 6, and the last one being 4 by 4. Fortunately, I couldn't even get to the 3rd floor. So that is kind of, the problem here. As we see, this floor is pretty structurally sound. And if we come down to the floor below it, we see that this floor is, it's alright. It's got a little bit of yellows, but that's not too bad. But the floor below that, the one that's having to bear all that weight, unfortunately, is all orange and red. And just to show you how I was building, I did 2 thickness walls. I was trying to make the walls a little bit more structurally sound. I did do some destruction tests with the catapult balls that you can, fling around, and I found that, just the 1 thickness walls were very weak. Against the large catapult stones, they essentially would just crumple and disintegrate. A whole section of walls would just disintegrate under 1 stone. So I found the most structurally sound was actually using these blocks here, and then the normal thickness walls behind that was the most structurally sound, because these blocks would disintegrate under the that stone, but the blocks behind it of this thickness would be more or less intact. You might have a little bit of cracks, but the wall wouldn't actually crumble. Now, the 2 thickness walls of this type, which is what we have here, and if we look up here, we'll see that. We have 1 thickness of wall, and then we have another one right up against that. These are a little bit more structurally sound than 1 wall, but they still more or less crumble under a stone. So that's kind of disappointing that the stones are as powerful as they are. But at the same time, though, with my test, you're simulating a pretty full power catapult stone at really close range, which is not really the ranges you're going to be seeing. So for a little bit more structural integrity, I made the walls 2 thickness. But the end result is that we have that this thing just can't bear the weight. So essentially how I built this is I would do this, and we might already be having structural integrity problems, as I'm noticing lag. As you see there, the second I put a little bit more weight on this thing starts to crumble, and I can't build my 3rd floor. So that's pretty much all she wrote. As soon as you put a little bit more weight on the 3rd floor there, the whole thing crumbles and to dust and collapses. So essentially that's what I'm finding. So my real challenge, and this is a challenge I'm trying to do with structural integrity on, is it possible to build a structure that is 3 or more floors with structural integrity and building the thing completely out of stone? What we see out of some of the pre-constructed buildings that we have available to us, if you load in some of the worlds, is we do see these castles that are using very much smaller structures made out of stone, and using, essentially, in my opinion, cheating by using wooden floors, to lessen the weight load and all those things. And even if you look at some of those buildings, they're not all that structurally sound. But if you look at, for instance, if you load in the castle, which is one of the pre-generated worlds you can load in, most of the structure is actually wood, not stone. So what I'm trying to do is making a large structure, one is 3 or more floors, that is completely built out of stone. And so far, the way the structural integrity is set up in the game, that doesn't work. As we see, we're still having this building crumble. It just doesn't work with the way the structural integrity is right now. So I don't know if we have to wait until they do more updates with the structural integrity. I mean, the game just did launch, and at the moment, and there we see the building finally collapse. At the moment, the structural integrity, the way it is set up right now, you can't really build these large structures out of stone, and that's kind of disappointing to me, because that's one of the first things I wanted to do. But as I said, I'm going to continue to experiment with this. I've actually given thought to doing live streams of this game and just playing around with the different structures and seeing if I could actually build one that would stand up to all this weight. So far, unsuccessful. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and my structure. I thought this would work, and it didn't. And as we can see, building these large structures are quite a challenge. And of the few people that I follow that do medieval engineers, I haven't really seen anybody doing much in the way of large structures without cheating and just turning structural integrity off. And that's essentially what the goal I've set myself, is trying to build a larger structure out of stone with structural integrity on, and seeing if I can do it. So far, it's been just failures, but hopefully we can get some success. As I said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This is Mouse Gunner, signing out.